Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another video. Today I'll be doing a parts overview of a new build, and this one will be 6S capable. So let's get right into it here. So first up we have the frame, and now this is the Mode 2 Ghost Special Edition. And if you take a look at it next to a regular Mode 2 Ghost, really the only difference is pretty much the top plate here. Obviously this does come with sort of the blue, I'm not sure what you call it, digital camo maybe, sort of. It's really, it looks way better in person than on camera. It looks quite interesting. It's on top and bottom, sort of this skin. And then you have the top plate that's a little bit more decorative, as well as in the back, the plate comes together and uses the two center holes instead of the outside one. So other than that, it's identical. So you can see there. So you could swap them back and forth, just moving the standoffs. So that's real nice. And then in the back with them together, they have this Brain 3D mount, this TPU mount that just sort of slides down that can hold an axis, and then antenna tubes out the back here if you're interested in using that. Other than that, everything else is exactly the same as the regular Ghost, so that's what we'll be running it. So next up for the motors, probably one of the most important parts of a 6S drivetrain, I'll actually be using the Pyrodrone Hyperlight. I can get them to focus right here. The Hyperlight 2207 1722 kV motors, the HV edition right there. Now these are really nice, fantastic looking motors overall. They have the hollow titanium shaft, a really lightweight top bell design with a sort of scored out top of the bell for gripping the prop. We have the naked bottom design, really long 160 millimeter 20 gauge wire. We do have single stranded windings there, N52 SH curved magnets, and a set screw on the bottom to hold the bell on. The weight of the motor should be pretty light. There's quite a bit of wires on here, like I said, 160 millimeters, but we'll see what that weighs out to. 32.7 grams. So with that amount of wire, that's very impressive. That's a 30 gram 2207 motor. That's a really nice weight. So just taking the bell off with a 1.5 millimeter screw. They do recommend that you heat the screw up before you try taking it out. However, I didn't. Not having any problems yet. There we go. The screw came all the way out. Definitely is some Loctite on the end, and it was a little bit difficult. I was kind of worried about stripping it. However, the head stayed true, and it didn't have any problems. And then we're just left with a little, looks like brass bushing underneath. So we can take a closer look at the stator itself. Very nice windings there. You can see there's a couple extra winds on there since we have a lower KV. That actually uses more windings. We have the very thin stator eliminations, 0.15 millimeters. Then if we take a look at the bell, you can see the hollow titanium shaft up top. Goes down to a hollow 4 millimeter titanium shaft. And then we have our 7 millimeter tall magnets laid in there. Pretty much the only thing that I think could be slightly improved about this design would be a small lip coming under the bottom of the magnets to help prevent slipping. But honestly, I've never actually slipped a magnet myself. I just know it has been a problem with some people. Not even on these motors. It's just a very, very small change, but I really don't see it being any problems like this. So really, really nice motor, and I'm really looking forward to using them here. And just put it back in nice and slow. Everything spins fine. Alright, and then just getting it all the way back in tight, and then just backing it up probably about a quarter turn, making everything spins nice and smooth. There we go. And I did actually have a tiny bit of trouble getting it back in, so I did take my soldering iron up to 440 degrees Celsius and just held it on the tip of the screw for probably about 30 seconds, and then it was really loose. The Loctite was loosened up, and I was able to tighten it back up. So if you are going to be taking these off, you can do it without any heat, but I would recommend just applying just a little bit of heat. It marked up the screw just a little bit there, but nothing too bad. And that's definitely better than stripping out the screw. And then the motors also come with 4 screws to attach it to the arm. I believe they are 6 millimeter screws. And then you do get one lock nut here. It is not the wide base version because they give you sort of this piece here that goes down over the prop, and then the lock nut tightens on top of that. I'm not really a huge fan just because that's an extra part to worry about, and especially when you're changing props, you could drop it and lose it. However, this is a pretty effective solution, especially combined with the scoring on top of the bell to keep your props really nice and tight and coming loose, so I guess that's a good thing. Alright, so next up to power these motors on 6S, we have our 4-in-1 ESC. This is the Acon AK32 35 amp 4-in-1 ESC. You can see very nice quality looking 4-in-1 ESC from Acon. Have lots of little capacitors along the edge here. It is a little bit bigger than a 36mm board. You can see sort of the solder pads stick out there, but that's pretty much standard on a lot of ESCs. You can see it has very nice large FETs for that there, and we do have a current sensor on the bottom here, so that's really nice, especially if your flight controller doesn't have a current sensor. You can use this and then just run the current wire up to get that data, as well as this does have a 5-volt back on here, which will supply 5 volts out if your flight controller needs that. I haven't used this ESC yet, but it should be really, really nice, and the only two things that I'm kind of worried about, I'm not worried about, but are kind of annoying, is that the they label motor 1. Let's see, they want you to have this as the front right here, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and they want you to have your battery leads come out the side. But I don't know why they do that. Why would you want to have your leads do that or come down? I much rather prefer them to come out the back, especially in the Ghost frame, because then it pretty much just comes right here, zip ties to the arm or the standoff, and then you're good to go. So you can switch that. It's just you just kind of have to change the pins in the wiring. It's not a big deal, but it is just a little annoyance, and I wish they had just set it up to have it coming out the back. One thing though, I do definitely appreciate them having leads on without a connector, because that easily lets you pick what length you need without having to solder these connectors, the main pads, which is usually an issue for a lot of beginners. This way you get really nice clean joints, solid joints there without having to worry about that. And this does come with 14 gauge wire, which I am a fan of. There's no need for 12 gauge. Also does come with a little 330 microfarad cap, and all these little wire cables here are for the flight controller. Now this is something pretty special here. This is the PyroFlip RC Hyperlight F4 OSD flight controller, and this is sort of the V2 of the Hyperlight F4 that I've been using for quite a long time now. If you've seen my quads or any of my other build videos, this little orange board, you can see this guy's a little smashed up here, but I really, really like this flight controller. And this one's actually signed by Serge. You can see it just under there. It's been a really solid flight controller for me. I've probably built about 8 quads with it now. There was nothing special on it, no OSD, no current sensor, nothing special. It just worked for me, and I didn't need any of that extra stuff. So now it's really nice to have this new version that has a built-in Betaflight OSD. It has 6 UARTs, I believe. It has 2 inverted, so you can do your S-port, your telemetry, your crossfire, GPS, anything pretty much you need. You have 6 UARTs, so hopefully you don't need that many. I do have the F4 chip there, as well as it has an MPU 6000 gyro, which I'm a fan of, and it has the little grommet rubber O-ring inserts to just nice and cleanly sit down on your stack, so it's much easier to soft mount. Pretty much the only downgrade on this board for me was the bind button. It is a smaller, harder to press one, but it's still no big deal. Very, very small gripe. Another huge feature of this board is its completely flat backside, and the purpose of that, if you look at my other builds, is so you can stick stuff to it. Here's a Unify, it's just double-sided sticky tape, and that is not going anywhere. So it's really, really nice and convenient to just take, say, a Unify or your receiver and just stick it on there, and it can't move. So I'm really a big fan of that. Pretty much the only thing this board is missing is maybe like an SD card reader, but I honestly have no interest in black box. And then it will take these cables that it comes with, plugs into the flight controller side, and then the other one plugs into the ESC. Right there, that's it. That's all the connections there. No pins, so you're not going to worry about breaking them. And this supplies the power to the flight controller, which takes full 6S voltage. It has a current pin, if you could see the current sensor once again, so it does send the current data to the flight controller. Then it has all the motor signals. And now this is the first batch of this flight controller, so the wiring cables were actually a little bit messed up. They sent a warning about that to anybody who got the first round of boards. They are going to be fixed. So for me, I'm going to have to rearrange the pinout of the wiring cables, but that's not a big deal. And they come with different cables for a couple different ESCs depending on what you have there. So yeah, I'm really excited that they finally updated this board, and it's 100% going to be my main board going forwards. It's just fantastic. Alright, so next we can sort of just go over the video system. Very, very simple. As you probably saw, I'm going to be using a TBS Unify HV race, these have been really solid for me. No problems there. And I'm going to be using a Lumineer Axi left-hand circularly polarized UFL, since this frame does take the Axi holder. Normally I use something like this for an SMA out the back, and I put an Emax Pagoda out there, or you could also use something like a Foxeer Lollipop here. For the camera, I would prefer to be using a Foxeer Micro Predator, however I don't have any at the time, so I'm just going to be using a Foxeer Micro Aero Pro, which is still a great CCD camera, only 20 bucks, great image. Definitely like these cameras. And something a little bit special you probably haven't seen before is this little guy. Now this is a Tiny Tie LED, super small LED. Here is pretty much what a typical LED strip goes for, looks like. So you can see it's quite a bit smaller than that, much more condensed with the battery leads on both sides. If you can pull it over, see it says FPV chat on the back. And now these ones normally only go to 12 volts, however these LEDs are made to run off 4S direct battery voltage, and I'm pretty sure he can also make them for 5 and 6S. And I've been using these for a while. I just have one mounted up here. This quad is extremely dirty and beat up, but you get the point. Hopefully you can tell they are extremely bright. That just totally blew out the camera. Got a bunch of different colors: blue, purple, pink, orange, right there, green, white, and a few other ones. So these are really cool. They're pretty cheap. I believe it's about 6 LEDs for $10. I'll leave a link down to a store below, and I will be including those. Pretty much, I think I'm going to put 2 underneath the arms right here. That seems to work really well, since once you're tilted up in a race, you can then, people behind you can see that. So that's really cool. As well as we did make this little TPU holder. If you're interested in running with the normal Ghost, you can slide this over. This just pops, it'll just pop in there, and then the wires run back, and that's what you see here. I just have a blue one. It's a separate piece to hold it, but that's a little bit in the way of the antenna. The antenna kind of blocks it there, so that's why putting them underneath the arms right here is the best solution. Alright, so last but not least, we have the 6S batteries, probably one of the most important things. So what I have here is a Pulse 6S 1050 mAh 45C. You can see all 6 cells there, the big balance lead connector. And then here we have the Pulse 1250 75C graphene pack here. See, a little bit bigger. And let me just quickly show you a size comparison to a Tattoo R-Line 1550 4S 95C, which is what I normally run. Here it is next to the 1050. You can see the 1000 is actually a little bit smaller. If we just line them up side by side here, and then the 1250 is just a little bit bigger right there. And if we get a quick weight on it, the 4S battery weighs about 193 grams. The 6S 1050 weighs 166, so that's actually almost 30 grams lighter. So if I can run this, that'll be really nice. And then the 1250 weighs about 208 grams, so about 10 to 20 grams heavier than the 4S. So I normally pretty much use R-Lines exclusively. However, Tattoo really doesn't have that many good options in 6S right now. They do have a 1300 6S R-Line 95C. However, that weighs about 240 grams, so I didn't want the extra 35 grams there, and it was always like 50 bucks. These Pulse lipos are about, I believe this one was $22 and this one was $38. They're a pretty good price, especially for 6S, so Pulse is really on top of the 6S game right now. So hopefully other companies will soon start to catch up with their 6S offerings. These are probably the 2 most popular 6S packs right now, and I have seen people using the 1050 without problems. However, I did see people that are really pushing it, like Evan Turner, Heads Up FPV, needing to use the 1250. And let me just quickly explain, now that we're all the way into the video, sort of the reason for going to 6S. So when you're on 4S, you're pretty much going to be using about 2400 to 2600 kV. Let's just say that's a general range, which is kind of about 38,000 RPMs. If you don't know, kV means how many RPMs per volt. So a 1722 kV motor right here means that for every 1 volt we feed it, we'll get 1,722 RPMs. So in going from high kV and lower voltage at 4S to a higher voltage, lower kV on 6S, that is done to get efficiency. You're not really going to see many speed benefits. The torque of the motor should be greatly increased. However, the overall top speed should be very, very similar to 4S, because if you calculate the theoretical RPMs, everything pretty much lines up on the lower kV with the higher voltage. But the main benefit of 6S is actually increased efficiency. People running 4S right now are not even be able to finish 2-minute races, let alone 2.5 minutes that they need pretty much to finish the lap that they're on in multi-GP style racing. And now these are the top tier pilots that are really pushing their setups at 80+% throttle the entire race. So 6S is really the way that they're trying to be able to finish the races, and multi-GP now allows this with the open battery limit. So I'm interested to try that out. Right now, my flying, I still am able to use 4S on an HV charge, but on some tracks it really does strain the pack. And not only should the 6S pack last a little bit longer in terms of flight time, it should have drastically less sag throughout the flight, voltage sag, so it should be a lot more consistent to fly. Alright, there we go. That's going to bring us to the end of the video here with just a sort of quick introduction to the 6S build that I'm going to be doing. There will be links down below in the description to everything that I have here, including the LEDs and the batteries. The Special Edition Ghost frame should be coming out soon. I'm not exactly sure when it will be, but that should be very soon. Leave a comment down below if you are running a 6S setup, and let me know what you've found testing it so far. I'm definitely very interested to try this out, especially for line of sight, because if the torque is going to be increased, that means response will be increased, which means even crazier line of sight. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that was the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.